So one of the challenges that I've found by doing these vlogs has been taking an idea and trying to present it to you in a way that's actually going to be really useful, and taking this from maybe something a large concept down to something quite smaller and into manageable chunks. And that's been a fascinating journey in how I'm trying to articulate some of the thoughts I've had. And I think it's a very useful technique for me to get used to, is being able to adjust what I usually say and looking to find a way that it's a more approachable, I guess, or more manageable, or more understandable, or more relatable for you. Taking some of the kind of the concepts and ideas that I work upon for myself, and actually trying to turn that thesis into something that's tangible for you to use. So that's been fascinating out of anything at all for me on doing these vlogs. About, okay, taking an idea, how am I going to present that in a relatively concise 9 to 10 minutes or so that it's something you're going to engage with and actually get some benefit from. How am I going to then get that to thread together and give you some benefit? So I've loved more than anything else working on that. So today I was going through my thoughts and thought, what can I do today? And I actually felt very clear about one thing, and maybe this is something that I want to keep on reminding myself to do for every one I put together. If I had this one interaction with you right now, if this is my one and final moment in time, I can talk to you, what could I give you that would be fundamentally what's a big difference, or the biggest difference in the amount of time I can give you, can I help you with? The resounding theme of any work I've ever done, either groups, via phone or in person, in any variety, comes down to one word. And then it's delineation from there, and it's variance from there. But there's one word: it's communication. In however multiple ways that I work, it's the same. It's the same parent. At the end of the day, it comes from communication. Either bad communication, unclear, if it's somehow cross communication, whatever forms it may be. The biggest change we can make is communication. Now, this doesn't have to be just with other people, other situations, but mainly with ourselves, how we communicate with ourselves. But that was kind of, the overarching thought that I wanted to share. But what could I give you that's specifically relatable and usable? And this is, if there's one skill I think that would make the biggest difference and biggest impact for you right now, I want you to begin to consider that what you believe to be true is 100% true. It's guaranteed exactly as you see it in your world. And at the same time, I also want to invite you to acknowledge that someone else's version of the world, of their reality, is also 100% true. So your version of the world is correct, and their version of the world is correct, and they may be different. But that's okay. But it's really important to recognize that in our filters, in our makeup, how we design, how our behavior comes about, this is the truest version of our world that we see it. And that for anyone else, they have a different version of their truth. Why do I mention this? We can get so wrapped up in convincing a situation, convincing a person, or convincing ourselves of there's a truth out there, a singularity that we should align to. And we can get really knotted up in the belief that everyone has to come together in that single point, that single truth that we must all own and all share. Why do I feel I need to challenge this? It's because when we get into that mindset of believing there's one truth, that either we're right or wrong, or someone else is right or wrong, and they need to be brought in line, we are doing them a disservice and discredit to ourselves to actually understand the other person's world. So I invite you, as a sentence from this particular vlog is, there is your truth, there is somebody else's truth. There is no singularity that is truer or more than the others, because they are your own version. The minute you can begin to understand that, the minute you can begin to believe that actually there are more versions than just your own, you begin to get some flexibility in your thinking. If we go down the idea that it's your truth and it's exactly true for you, and that is the be all and end all, then you're going to be fighting a lot of the world. because the world's going to have a lot of varying versions of it. You're going to have a lot of frustration, anger, and disappointment. And whilst I'm not asking you to relinquish what is true for you, I'm asking you to acknowledge that other people have different versions of of reality than yours. We pursue the idea that we must argue our way through or challenge everyone else with their thinking with our own, but don't first acknowledge that what they see is 100% as true as you're seeing it. They're seeing it equally as true. If we don't acknowledge this, then we are going to be really stuck in trying to come to some sort of harmony, some sort of improved communication. So for a moment, I want you to take a moment in your history that you can recall relatively easily and quickly, where you may have had some sort of argument or a different approach to something which may have got heated. I want you to go back to that moment and notice when you were arguing your point across, noticing how actually you became more entrenched in your thinking and less accepting of someone else's version of it. And I can imagine that maybe after this situation has happened, after this has come in, things have cooled down, you've had that pause, that moment to reflect, and actually maybe at some point you would recognize that actually the other person had some sort of validity in their observation, that something actually may have been something you need to have taken on board. It's when we get into these heightened versions, we get locked down. Our thinking closes down like a funnel and shuts down, and we are just resolute on our way of things. But our goal can't be to simply force someone to change their opinion. It's about how we bring a coalition of thinking to create the change we're after. When we get so strong and fixed on a belief, it's one that's very disempowering because we give all our emotions to this one belief we're hanging on to. The minute we can invite other versions of reality, and that doesn't mean to say that, by comparison they seem to be very nasty or very bad or wrong, but if we begin to appreciate it from another perspective, we have a way of doing two things. One, dialing back down our frustration with the lack of communication or communicating clearly. And two, we also get an understanding of the person's world we're talking to. We get some insights of how we can then talk with them in a different way, communicate with them in a different way, and maybe get a better result. Because if we are both thinking we're true about something, we're holding those truisms, I guess, it's also saying we can both be wrong in the same point and recognizing that. So if anything at all, it's about noticing that both parties are holding on to a truth. It's just very different truths. And if you begin to notice that and play it like a soundtrack over some of your previous history, some examples you can think of, and to see it in that way, I invite you to consider that it would begin to diminish some of those heightened feelings, some of that upset that you may have felt at the time, or they have may have felt at the time. So I will make it very clear that the sooner we can adopt an acceptance that people have just a stronger belief in that what is true for them as we do for ourselves, if we can begin to understand that there are a variety of truths people believing through their filters, through their behaviors, through their beliefs, if we can begin to acknowledge that, we are in a better position to communicate our feelings, to actually have some dialogue going on where we're creating some harmony and we're moving away from aggression. The sooner we can understand that, we begin to move faster. We're not crippled by this idea that we must kind of get our point across, but we are looking to create some sort of back and forth, some collaboration in thinking. So there is never your version and it's the truth and everyone else is wrong. It's your version, it's the truth for you, and they have their truth for them. If we can understand that and respect it, and to add, that doesn't mean to agree to it. The idea is that we must be able to respect and understand, then have to accept or agree the principles. We are in a far better place to get where we want to be at the end of this, not kind of hanging on to things that really in the day we need to move on from. This is one of the most simplest but most useful techniques that I could give you that would make a dramatic difference to how you see your current relationships and past, but also more importantly, into your futures. So, let me think about that. Comments are there, leave them. Feedback is great. I love hearing from you. Until next time, take care.